This is the Rising Goddess Podcast, and I'm your host, Michelle Torrance. This is a space where when we start diving deep, we're talking spiritual, mental, and physical. We're getting real and connecting with ourselves and others in the most intimate ways. We'll be talking all things sacred sexual, relationship building, womb healing, connection, and connecting with and through our bodies, how to use our sexual and sensual energies to create, manifest, and heal our lives in our individual and collective ancient feminine lines, while intertwining our healing and connection with the divine masculine. We'll learn from amazing humans who take time and share their wisdom and sacred healing magic. Rising humans who are here in this world to be healers, teachers, guides, priestesses, warriors, shamans, and all divine sisters and brothers in rising. We'll get witchy, sassy, sexy, and saucy, talking all things that align us with our true nature and authentic selves, creating a community of divine feminine and masculine rising to be a massive part in this shift of world healing. So grab some green juice, light some cannabis, get your blankets, or sit by the fire. Let's rise up together. Catch you on the inside, dolls. Hello, my beautiful rising humans, and welcome to this next episode of the Rising Goddess Podcast. Today, you are going to hear the conversation between Kat Trimarco and I. This was such a fun conversation. I'm going to sing it to you. And it was really an open conversation about so many amazing different things, and we had such a great time. So I'm really excited to get your feedback on it. So make sure you head on over to the Rising Goddess Facebook page, Rising Goddess Podcast Facebook page, and comment underneath the picture of this episode being dropped, and let's continue the conversation on it. And if you're not familiar with Kat, Kat is a spiritual teacher and a coach, a sex coach, and a published author and speaker. Everything that Kat teaches is centered around coming home to your true self, your true soul self, your true sexual self, and then living the outward expression of your most authentic and powerful self. She coaches and teaches people to understand their inner world of thoughts, emotions, and energies to overcome limiting beliefs and live a personalized version of your best life. She assists singles and couples in tapping into their sexual energy, pleasure, and desire through her work with erotic blueprints. Kat's first book, Self-Approved, A Guide to Accepting, Loving, and Expressing the Person You Truly Are, was published in 2017 and is available worldwide on Amazon. So definitely go check out that book. And she is also available to be hired for one-on-one spiritual life coaching, singles, couples, sex coaching, as well as group workshops to teach and speak. So she is just truly amazing. She has so much to offer, and definitely check her out and definitely enjoy this episode. So check it out, and I will catch you all on the next time. Later. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode. We are here today with the beautiful Kat, and Kat is here. She is so amazing. I love all of her ink on her body. I love what she stands for. I love her beauty. I love her energy. I love her hair, her unicorn hair, and she can talk a little bit about that too and that experience when we move forward. But I'm really excited to share this time with her today. And Kat, thank you so much for being on this podcast with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yay, absolutely. And I have one question that I ask every single guest when they come on is, what do you love about being a human right now in this time and space?
We're going through a huge paradigm shift right now. Like the entire world, the entire fucking consciousness is shifting. And that is both terrifying and extremely exciting at the same time. So that's what I'm most excited about, is like we're moving into an entirely different way of being and operating in the physical world dimension.
I love that. And I fully agree with you on that too. And I think that really where this is leading is where you and I kind of combine in our work. We both obviously work in our sexual expressions, sacred sexual energy, the rising of the feminine and the divine masculine harmonizing together. And so I wanted to kind of start off with that. If first of all, we'll have Kat's information where you can follow her later on in the show notes, and she'll express to us where we can go ahead and find her and everything. But what I'd love for you to do is, if you haven't followed or seen any of Kat's artwork on her Instagram, her posts are really intriguing and they draw me in. And so the energy of her Instagram is really beautiful sexual expression. And so, what I want to ask you, Kat, is have you always been this way of sexual expression or erotic expression? Or how were you? Who was Kat when you were younger? What event happened in your life or that transpired that shifted you into this expression of who you are now, if anything did?
Yeah, I would love to talk about that because it's such an important part, the journey leading up to it. And for me, it started, I mean, my sexuality journey started when I was like 4 or 5 and I discovered masturbation. And I don't even remember how. I think it was like, I remember my mom had the Joy of Sex book, and I would sneak
Yes.
into her room and steal that and masturbate to it. And I, even at that young of an age, and as I got older and was doing that, I had a lot of shame about it. Like I was like, it was like somewhere inside me, I knew this is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. This is bad. Um, it was internalized as like, this is something I need to hide. This is something that people can't know about. And once I was in my teenage years, I was really sexual at a young age. I started having sex at a young age. And there were pieces of that that I feel like were for other people's approval, were to get men's approval. But it was also just my own curiosity, my own desire to explore this side of myself. But then really once I got into my 20s, into my adult life, I shut it down. It's like I didn't know how to have a relationship with my sexuality. I really stopped having a relationship with my sexuality. I could only have sex when I was drunk for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the only way I knew how to open up and be intimate with another person. And really, what I've realized now is it's because I was so energetically sensitive, um, that level of love and intimacy, I didn't know how to take it in. So it's like I had to like have that bridge, and drugs and alcohol allowed me to do that for a lot of years. But then after that, it was really time and time again, and I talk about this like in almost every talk I do with women because it's so important. Relationship after relationship, I ended up in the same dilemma, the same challenge, and that was men asking me, what do I want? How do I what do I do to make you orgasm? What can I do to make you feel good? And time again, I didn't have an answer. I didn't know. It was like I knew how it would feel in my body if I felt it, but I didn't know how to communicate that. I didn't know how to articulate it. And the conflict came when they would get really frustrated. It's like they would get really upset and really frustrated, and then I would internalize that as I'm not enough, I'm
Right.
inadequate, or I'm broken. Like I really felt like there's something broken inside of me, and I couldn't orgasm with men. Like I could orgasm by myself, but I could not orgasm with men. And so it was a pain point for a lot of years, and that's really what sent me on this journey of sexual exploration. It really got to a point where I was like, nobody taught me this shit. I'm going to figure it out. Like, how do I know my own body? How do I know my own sexuality? And how do I bring that into partnership with another person? And
Mm.
that's really that was the catalyst, was like multiple relationships, this problem coming up, and really being the thing that led to the disintegration of the relationship. And it really got to a point of me just being like, I'm fucking tired of this. I'm figuring this out. I'm exploring this, and I'll do whatever it takes to awaken this part of myself.
I love that. There's so many similarities between you and I regarding your story, and I fully believe that there's many women out there who are resonating with this as well, and especially when having a higher, I wouldn't want to call it a drive, but we'll just use that for lack of better term, a higher sex drive in our like mid to late teens, right? We're getting crazy. We're
Hmm.
18 and then we're like, okay, now we're going to go out and do whatever the fuck we want. And then in my 20s, I too shut down. And this happened for me after I had kids.
Hmm.
And I shut down completely on my own sexual experience. And for me, mine came from through a state of shame of growing up and working, understanding where I'm at now is working through and understanding that shame and
Hmm.
releasing that. And that's what I teach women. But what I love so much too is that when you were talking about how the men were asking you how can they serve you, how can they help you, and you knew what you wanted but you didn't know how to articulate or communicate that. Let me ask you, going back with that shame, how were you raised around sexuality? Was there an open conversation in your home? Did you talk openly with parents or guardians or sisters or whomever, or was it like don't talk, don't tell, or don't talk and nothing will happen and it just doesn't exist? Or what was that experience like to lean into
Yes.
that?
So there's a couple things. First, I just have to like re-articulate that when men were asking me that, I wasn't knowing what I was wanting.
Mm,
I knew the feeling of it.
okay.
It
Mm-hmm.
was like I could have an awareness inside myself of like I know how I want to feel, but I
Yes.
don't know how to tell you how to touch me to feel that way. It was like the two weren't computing.
Yes.
And so there's that piece. And then yeah, interestingly enough, like my mom was really open talking to me and my brother about sex. Like when we were teenagers, she would buy boxes of condoms and leave them in the bathroom, and she would always say, there's condoms there, I will never count how many there are. Like she really wanted us to know that like I'm not judging you. You like be safe. Like
Mm-hmm.
whatever you do, be safe, protect yourself. When I started having sex when I was 13, I think I was 13 or 14, and started dating, immediately she took me to get birth control, and there was no questions about it. Um there was no shame. It was just, yo, you're having sex now, this is what we're doing. But interestingly enough, it was like I still had an internalized shame about it.
Mm,
And even though my mom was having those conversations with me, there was no conversation about understanding my body and
mm,
understanding my pleasure. It was all from a safety standpoint. It was all
yes.
like, don't get pregnant, this is how you have safe sex. There was nothing around what are my sexual desires, um what does my body need, what do I need emotionally to be intimate with someone. Like those conversations weren't there, and that's so much of what I do with women and couples. Like, and I have men in on this conversation, which is beautiful,
Yes,
because
absolutely.
that's the shit we weren't taught. And
Yeah.
and it's no, I really don't believe that it's any fault of our parents. It's just the evolution. They were like, I really believe my mom was doing the best she knew how to do. And for that time, even that was really progressive, to be having the conversations she was having with me and my brother, and to be buying condoms and these kind of things. I felt like she was a lot more open than any of my friends' parents growing up.
Yeah, it really sounds like that, and I can imagine too. I mean, having the support of your mom, knowing that the protection is there, and coming from that angle, at least having a sense of security from that state, to allow yourself to start to explore. And but I really fully understand too that the most important part, besides the protection, the physical aspect of sex, is really, like you said, understanding your body and your pleasure points. And you started masturbating pretty early. Based
Mm-hmm.
off of some, different sort of conversations that I've had with people. Myself, I started when I was around 10, and we had the same book, The Joy of Sex. It was in my parents' bedroom, and all the hairy people everywhere, and this is 70s fro and pit hair and everything, which is making a comeback. But um, you know, it was all of that, and there too was an underlying shame, which I think my own personal thoughts, and I'd love to get your idea and opinion on this as well, is that underlining shame of like as you're doing it, you thinking I'm doing something wrong. I
Yeah.
really believe that that is this karmic energy that's come through this mother wound, witch wound, this ancient energy coming through that has been circling out, and it's like built into us unless we actually go through and dissect it and remove the shame slivers is what I call it. Because
Mm.
sometimes it's not this big block of shame, it's these little slivers that are, just when you get like a splinter in your finger or in your hand, it's like just this aggravating pain, and you don't really know where it came from, you don't know how you got it, but it's there.
Hmm.
Do you feel that there, based off of your own experiences and just where you at in your life, do you feel that that could be something that is coming through right now into the collective and is starting to kind of break open? Um,
Yeah, like I've never heard it described, and I know we were kind of talking about this last week just on our personal call. This is like the first I've never heard the terminology or used the terminology. I'm hearing a lot about the mother wound. Um, and so I can't comment too much on that because I don't know a ton about it. But what I really see, what my experience is in myself and others, or how I'm interpreting it through my own consciousness,
mhm,
is it's this waking up to pleasure and
mm,
waking up to joy. And so truthfully, even with my own clients, we don't have a huge shame conversation because I believe if we're fighting something, if we're like battling something off, or even if we're in the energy of like, oh, I need to heal this, that becomes like the energetic um, vibration that we're living in. So I really approach it more as how can we live in more pleasure? How can we allow ourselves to experience higher and higher levels of pleasure? And that's when those old belief systems or those old paradigms come up of like,
mm,
well, when I was whatever age and I was masturbating and that gave me pleasure, I internalized it as I'm doing something wrong. And then so that belief gets ingrained. And then now in life, later in life, that becomes the internal program. So, and what I see with a lot of women I work with is that it's sexually, but it becomes the belief system that operates throughout all of life, like throughout everything we do. So it's almost this like we're kind of conditioned to suffer in order to receive, which is
mm,
actually energetically like a reversed paradigm. Because in truth, when we're in pleasure, we receive. When we're in our joy, we receive. And so it's like breaking down those like old faulty belief systems that aren't really true, so we can live into this new paradigm of pleasure and of joy. And I really want to like just I guess like emphasize that by that I don't mean this kind of fluff of positivity or
yes.
um, yeah, like, oh, you have to think positive to get positive. No, no, no. Like, we can find pleasure um, in sadness. We can find
Hmm.
pleasure in all the ebbs and flows of life. But it's really, and we can have like way more joy. And that's actually like my own personal. I like to be really vulnerable and like share always where I'm at. Like, I'm human too, and I'm always doing the work myself. And like where I find myself right now is like, yeah, this new threshold of how much can I let into my life? How much pleasure can I let in? How much can I receive? And there's this tendency to want to shut down or want to push it away because the conditioning is I have to suffer more in order to receive. I have to work harder in order to receive. And I mean like receiving money, receiving men, receiving
Mm,
orgasms, receiving a joyful experience. And so it's like, yeah, I see like the parallel between sex pleasure and pleasure in all areas of life. And that's like when I work with my clients, I mean, we're working sexually, but we're really working like women, our brains are we're set up like our brains are like a ball of wire. So everything's connected. If we're not truly experiencing pleasure in the bedroom, chances are we're not truly experiencing pleasure in other areas of life and vice versa.
I fully 100% agree with you on that. And that's where my work is really focusing on when we, if we take it and shift it over into the chakra centers. I really focus and work with people. I don't do a lot of one-on-ones anymore, but the focus is really more on root and sacral chakra, and then of course with our solar plexus to engage in that internal power of those. But I fully believe that if we are blocking ourselves in our sexual lives and any sort of pleasure that we are not allowing ourselves to receive throughout our sexual experience and the sexual nature of our energy here, that translates into every single area, just like you said, because all of our desires go through our sacral chakra, whether it's sexual or not. And if we're in that state of blocking that particular sacral chakra, not grounding ourselves and grounding those desires within this existence in our root chakra and finding that confidence in ourselves and confidence in our desires, then, and especially with our sexual life, then we're not going to be able to allow ourselves, just like you said, to receive the joy and the pleasures of all areas like money and men, just a joyful experience, like you said. And one of the things too that I love, this is a great question that I'm definitely going to put in as a journal prompt for myself is, and if for all of our listeners out there, this is a great journal prompt question: how much pleasure can I get in my life?
Mm-hmm.
Or how much pleasure can I have in my life? And when you really ask yourself that question and be honest with yourself, like Kat is being honest with herself and I'm being honest with myself, you can really start to break down these old paradigms, like she was saying. And um, that's really fantastic. And a lot of the philosophies, a lot of the things that you're really touching on to, Kat, is really tantric philosophies, pleasure and joy, in every single experience that is happening right now. We are having a spiritual, pleasurable, joyful experience,
Mm-hmm.
and it's I'm just loving the work. And what I love, which will help us transition now into my next question, and what I'd love to talk about is how you're able to really kind of transfer that energy into a physical expression of self. And I love on your page you talk a lot about erotic expression, sexual expression, self expression is from that, and this really kind of ties into as well, into your book.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love for you to kind of just share and just kind of flow with, share with us what does self-expression mean to you? What does erotic or sexual expression mean to you? And how important is that for not only women but men, any however you identify, is so important for us to feel confident and express ourselves in that way.
Yeah, this is such a powerful question. I'm so happy you're asking it because I'm writing my second book right now, and I was working
Awesome.
on it yesterday and I was talking about this. So I'm really going to like break this down in that book, but it's really about tapping into how we feel internally. Like it was so interesting. I was a little side story that ties into this. A woman was talking to me in a lady's bathroom the other day, and about my hair and my tattoos. Like I have this crazy pink hair and all these tattoos and piercings, and she was talking about something about how people must react to me, or how I must be so noticeable anywhere I go in public. And I said, that's probably true. I said, but I don't experience it that way. I said, I'm just experiencing it from my inner world. And every time I put a new tattoo, a new piece of art on my body, every time I do something different and cool with my hair, it feels like more me than I felt
Mm,
before. I feel like,
yes.
oh, this is how and the only way I can think to describe it is like, this is how my soul wants to be in this body right now. And it's so easy for us to look at people externally and judge, or um, like make up stories about their personal self-expression. And so me, it's really for my on my own personal journey, and what I help other people do is like tapping into the feeling. Because we can look externally, like if I look externally and see like someone with pink hair and tattoos and think like, I want to be like that, and make myself become that on the outside, that's like a reversed way of doing things. It's really about like, how do I feel internally? What am I back to that word, desiring internally, and then becoming the outward expression of that. And it's so interesting, like how other people will perceive that and mirror that back. But really, that's really the work, is tapping in internally rather than these like outside projections of who we think we have to be or the way we think we have to look, in any context.
I love that. I do love that. And I find myself in that same area as well. Half of my head is shaved. I've got super bright red hair.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on adding more ink. I've got so many in my head, but it is as I continue to do my own personal work within myself and really align and connect with the truth of who I am, my outward self-expression started to shift, and
Mm-hmm.
people recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's so important, and in really allowing yourself to find that confidence in doing the work. And I think that's where a lot of people, I find, get nervous, is just actually finding the confidence in doing the work, or thinking that they're doing the work the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel that there's any wrong way to do work unless you're bypassing something, and then you're still not doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to ask you, you went to, and this is going to kind of tie in as an expression of self. She made a post on her stories, and I'll just kind of do a brief intro, and you just kind of take it away. But
Mm-hmm.
Kat went to a orgasmic meditation ceremony, or full day expression situation here. My word, it can continue to leave my head here, but she went to a full day class of orgasmic meditation, and it's something that has really interested me, and really brought about curiosity. And so I'd love to hear, what is orgasmic meditation? Why is that something that could be helpful for you as well as many other women or men? And where do you feel that that could take somebody from one place to another? How do you feel that could actually expand the collective by going through those classes or that experience?
Yeah, so I took the 8-hour intro class on Saturday, so I'm now certified to practice, on my own. And so what orgasmic meditation is it's a practice of men stroking women. So men stroking women's clitorises in a very predetermined container and context. So it's a set 15 minutes. There's actually steps you go through, that are followed to create that safety, to create the container, to create the boundaries. And really what it is, though, or what my understanding of it is, it's a practice of complete presence from both people, on the man and the woman. And it's also, for women, the practice of complete receivership. So because it's in the 15-minute container, there's no reciprocation, which is often a big thing that comes up for women in sexual experiences, is like we have a hard time just leaning back and receiving the pleasure, because there's this like, oh, I got to give more. I need to, like, he went down on me, now I have to go down on him.
Right. The expectation of that is definitely rampant right now. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. And, or even this act of sex being about his pleasure. And I don't say that from men taking it. I think it's just the way we've internalized it. That's where our work is, to step into our own pleasure, to step into our own desires. But this practice is that it's a practice of women just literally lying down and doing nothing but receiving pleasure for 15 minutes and offering adjustments. So learning how to speak what we would like adjustments on. Can you go a little more to the right? A little more to the right. Can you lighten your pressure? Can you use more pressure? And so, and the man in this context is expecting that. This is the practice. So it's like when you were talking about like the root chakra, the base chakra. I mean, is that the chakra you were talking about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
about like grounding it down?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
to me, I see it like that. It's an actual practice of
Mm.
receiving. So, where we're not just, I mean, we're having a conversation about this right now, and this is an amazing place for people to start. But after we have like the intellectual understanding of like, okay, I want to expand into pleasure, I want to be able to receive more, it's like, actually, how do I move into the practice of doing that? And so, this is a physical, tangible practice of doing that, of receiving.
Mm, I love that. And I think it's so important for women to learn how to receive. We've been in this state for thousands of years of constantly with an expectation of always giving.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do receive in any sort of area, whether it's a compliment, whether it's a gift of a Starbucks gift card or a kudos of some sort, women in general as a collective have a hard time receiving that. And so I find this so exciting to have a secure container, a space that is specifically designed to help women learn to receive and also help men learn how to be able to fully give in and allow the woman to receive and listen to take direction on what would help the woman receive even more.
Yeah,
Um,
and from my understanding, like talking to the men there, like this is a new practice for me too, but I'm like diving in full
yeah.
force. So
Go after it,
talk to
sister.
me in a week or two. I'll probably have so much more to say.
She'll be flying
But
high,
yeah, I'll be
orgasming
flying
all over the
high.
place.
Yeah. Or I'll be just like completely unplugged. Like you won't see me on social media for 2 weeks because I'll be orgasmic meditationing all day.
I will be there. Save me the
Yeah.
spot.
Okay. Amazing. But my understanding from the men also is that it's a gift to them because they're really in the practice of the meditation of it. So for them it's honing in and using their complete presence to one spot on the body. And so they're also like energetically tuning in to what's happening in our body as the woman, taking the direction, but it's really about that complete focus and presence. So it's actually a gift to the men too, and like a practice for men too, which I find really beautiful. And hearing that from the men that are practicing,
Yeah.
that they're not looking at it just as, oh, I'm just here giving. They're like, no, I'm getting something out of it. This too, this is a beautiful experience. So having that reflected from the masculine, that actually giving to us women and letting us be in our pleasure in and of itself is a beautiful gift to them.
I fully believe that. And I believe that the divine masculine truly, truly, truly wants to give and wants to provide. And, men in general, their base energy is to want to fix things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something's wrong with you, you're crying. What do I do? Grab the duct tape, let me fix it. Who do I need to beat up or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be? And by having this experience, men can learn how to receive the gift of giving, and then also learn how to uh, play into the energy of the female partner and really be able to uh, satisfy and fill up their own masculine container of contributing and being a part of this experience instead of a separate entity from it. And I
Yeah.
think I love that. I love that really a lot of, and maybe this is because I'm in my, where I'm at in my particular paradigm and where I'm at in my time and space and reality, but I'm really starting to see a lot of people really connecting and, I'm not sure if you follow Kundalini a lot. But Yogi Bhajan says that the future is woman.
Mm.
And Guru Jagat, she says, yes, the future is woman, but let's bring our men along.
Yes.
Um,
Oh, tingles in my body. Uh,
yes,
mhm.
it's so important. And so I really, what you're doing right now and stepping into this type of expression of healing is really exciting. And what I also find too is which is really helpful, which really ripples throughout the collective, is that the energy that the men are experiencing and learning how to create this safe container,
Mm-hmm.
they can take, and really that energy ripples throughout to help the divine masculine rise up through this toxicity, through this patriarchal conditioning that's happening, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
seeking, they're wanting to support the feminine, and the feminine is wanting to support the masculine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's the new paradigm, is like collectively working together. This man versus woman, masculine versus feminine anymore. Like, I feel like we've been through that collectively in the past, and I know for myself that was reflected in my own of worshiping the man and then rejecting men, and really, like, I love men, like I love the masculine. And it's really like we get to work together in all of this. Like, it's not man versus woman anymore, and that's so beautiful.
I do. I love that so much. And you know what I think also too is so helpful for us to be able to really fall in love with this masculine and really help them rise is the feminine healing with other feminine,
Mm-hmm.
and women healing their relationships with women.
Mm-hmm.
And this really ties into something you brought up, and this is what I teach, but you brought up when you were talking about when your mother was talking about sex and you had that experience in the house of just understanding the safety and everything, but you didn't really understand your body. Where do you find yourself right now in your life with your relationship with your body, both energetically, spiritually, mentally, and physically?
I love my body, and I spent so many years hating it in so many different ways. And I'm at this beautiful place where where it's like, whether I lose 5 pounds or put on 5 pounds, I just love myself. And whether I orgasm in this way today and I don't orgasm tomorrow, it's like I still love myself. And um, it's just this beautiful relationship with my physical body, and with like that, including with my genitals. And that's
Mm.
so important as women, that we reclaim that relationship with our genitals, like
Mm.
really making friends with them again.
Yes, I fully agree, because I'll be honest, and this is a vulnerable moment for me right now. I didn't really learn how to be a woman or how to really care for myself until I met my husband. And
Mm-hmm.
my husband was actually the one to show me. He's like, "Have you even taken a mirror and looked at yourself?"
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I did that for the first time in my life, even though I've had masturbating experiences, all this sex all the time. For the first time in my life, I've taken a mirror to myself just a few years ago, and just actually looked at myself. And more recently, since I've been shifting into this awareness and this releasing of shame and this sexual energy rising up, I'm allowing myself to really dive into what I look like down there, how I am, and understand that just because my yoni looks different than another yoni doesn't mean that there's one's better, one's worse, one's, more connected or not.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's beauty in all of our selves as a whole.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
God, let's talk about sex, baby. I swear, I am having such a great time. And your dog is having a great time with us. I love it.
Yeah. Sorry.
Uh,
I don't know what.
no, it's all part of it. This is life, and dogs are a part of it. So, before we get into some of the fun little questions at the end and where people can find you, talk to me about some passion projects. What are you working on right now that is meant to serve both you, the collective, your clients? What are you really passionate about? What is going on, and why is it so important to you to do these passion projects?
Yeah, so the first thing is working on my second book, which is really about, I mean, it's for men and women, but it's really about awakening to our divine worthiness, and the cloak and misbelief of unworthiness that we've been living under as a society, and how we really wake up and remember who we are, and bring that down into the physical dimension and live that here and now. So that is on the forefront. And as of recently, I've actually recently had an inspiration. I mean, I do women's circles called Reclaim Your Sex, Reclaim Your Life, where we have these discussions and tap in a deeper way. And then I also do different workshops around sexuality and how to really tangibly understand our bodies and understand how we're wired for pleasure. So I work with Jaya's erotic blueprints for a lot of that, to actually map out within our body, like, okay, how's my body wired for pleasure? What touches are a yay? What are a nay? And getting really clear on that. So those women's circles, the workshops, and then just recently, I've really had a desire to like bust into more of the corporate world, and I'm not sure how to do this yet. So this is really new to me, but I'm like, well, Spirit's guiding me this way.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm doing it. But kind of the approach that I'm hoping to take and how to really awaken this conversation for like, quote unquote, like normal settings, or like bringing this into places where it's not being talked about. And I see that as like the Me Too movement and everything that was bubbling up and coming forward. I see that as really a call for women to reclaim their sexuality, to know their bodies, to know their physical boundaries and energetic boundaries of really, like, as women, when we're embodied and confident in our sexuality, actually we don't invite in that perpetrator energy, and that can be controversial. That can trigger some people, and I'm aware of that. But that's really the conversation I want to start, is like, hey, this is a call for us as women to reclaim our bodies, to really know who we are as sexual beings. This is not a time to point against men, to push against men, to make men wrong. We're beyond that. We're beyond that blaming war mentality energy. And so what I really want to do, and what I'm kind of working on manifesting and asking for guidance of how to bring this forward, is but to start going into corporate America and speaking to people about this, men and women, so that we can really come together and love each other, and women can really be embodied in their sexuality rather than afraid of it. Because I see that that's where perpetration comes from, is like, it's a outward manifestation of an inner fear of our own sexuality, and a feeling of unsafety in our own sexuality, and then that manifests as being unsafe in our sexuality outwardly.
Yes, it's it definitely is a controversial topic, but I definitely I'm aligned with that as well. And I see that. And I did want to bring up something, because I really feel like this is a topic that my husband and I talk about a lot. And this is a topic that I think women are very, I don't know the right word for it, apprehensive maybe, or judgmental. But I wanted to get your opinion on porn. What are your thoughts on porn? And there's so many different levels of porn out there, and so many different types of porn, and so many different energies. But I'd love to get your take on overall benefits of it, non-benefits of it. What is your take on porn?
Yeah, well, I used to love porn, and now I never watch porn. I don't think there's anything wrong with watching porn. However, I just got like a tight knot in my stomach when I said that. Maybe that's not aligned at all for me. That's interesting. I'm like, whoa, as I said those words, maybe that's not aligned. The mainstream porn, I think, contributes to a huge part of us feeling broken, or feeling like there's something wrong with us, because I know that my body doesn't respond in the way I watched women's bodies responding in pornography. And so that caused me to kind of just morph and pretend that, like, go through the motions of that
Mm-hmm.
without being really attuned to what was actually happening in my own body. And an internalized feeling of like, oh, I must be broken because like am not orgasming with men the
Right.
way they are or at all
Or
at that point.
I'm not orgasming the way that it looks like on that video or on that movie
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Or
and
for me, it
yeah,
was like not at all because I wasn't
yeah.
orgasming with men at all. So I'm like, I'm really broken now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Did you find yourself, just to kind of interject there,
yeah.
did you find yourself, if you're not, when you were not orgasming with men, did you find yourself seeking out to try and orgasm with other women to see
Um,
if that was something that was inside of you? Maybe, oh, maybe I have more of an attraction to female energy versus the men energy, or was that a thought that didn't run into your mind?
no, it didn't run into my mind. But it was like, oh, I can orgasm with porn by myself. So it was almost like the fantasy or the illusion I could get really aroused by. But once I was actually in it, like in my own body with another person, something was not computing there.
Okay.
But that being said, on the porn subject, there is a beautiful website called Make Love Not Porn. And the woman who runs it is her whole messaging is this is real life sex. So it's not going to look the way it looks in the mainstream porn. There's sounds, there's fluid. So real life couples of all sexual orientation submit their sex videos and you can go on there and rent them. And so I haven't watched porn honestly probably in over a year, but when I was when I was that's what I was watching more, and it was a much more real representation of what sex is and the diversity of what happens in the bedroom as opposed to mainstream porn. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like against porn, but mainstream porn, yeah, it's not real life. That's not what it looks like. That's not what happens, and it fucks people up but by thinking that it is. But something like Make Love Not Porn, I'm definitely on board with.
No doubt, no doubt. Sorry for my phone in the background. Apparently somebody's blowing me up.
That's okay. We got
Um,
dogs, we got phones.
I'm like, what the heck? Hang on one
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
One second. Okay, I'm sorry about that. It looks like somebody from the school is calling, so we'll have my husband take care of that.
Okay.
On the topic of porn, before we go, I think one of the things too that my husband and I talk a lot about regarding this is the energy of the experience, and he
Mm-hmm.
finds himself, because I don't mind. I obviously I don't have any issues with my husband watching and doing what he wants to do. However, because I trust that based off of what he likes, he notices that when he sees a video or a movie, he has to stop watching it if he finds that the woman is uh, is not in her own empowerment.
Mm.
And so when he finds that the patriarchal conditioning or this toxicity is running through on the male part and the woman doesn't have this empowered energy, he shuts down.
Mm.
And he can't watch that. And so it's interesting, and I love getting other people's opinion on that and perspective on porn because there are so many different perspectives based off of the expectation as women. Do we have to have our back arched this way? Do we
Mm-hmm.
need to have our hair styled a certain way? Have this bright red lipstick when we're sucking his dick or something?
Mm-hmm.
All of these things. And so I think it's really interesting to hear from a male perspective that even as a man, he can't even watch a video where the woman is being dehumanized in some sort of way, whether it's the male doing it to her or the female taking that action on upon herself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think this is such a great conversation, and I think I'm probably going to do a whole nother episode on porn, and I kind of want to have a few different guests on to talk about that. So I'd love to get you back on that and go in a little bit deeper in understanding that as how that can transfer into erotic expression and sexual expression, or how that is disconnected from it. So I'd
Yeah.
love to talk with you more on that as another time, but So we are coming to an end. We have been talking so much. I love this. We've had dogs, we've had phones, we've had, all sorts of stuff. I had an eagle or a hawk flying around, a spider crawling on my window. Everyone wants to talk about sex today.
Yeah, I love it.
So before we get into the fun little questions, where can people find you, Kat? Where can they get a hold of you, and where can they reach you to work with you?
Yeah, so all the info to work with me is on my website, www.kattrimarco.com. And I'm also super active on the Facebooks and the Instagrams, when I'm not getting blocked and not getting my
Oh
photos
yeah, we
removed.
totally
We
didn't talk
totally
about
forgot
that.
about that.
Let's bring this up before we go here.
Okay.
But she had I saw her on Facebook yesterday. She did a post, and all of a sudden her post was like talking about how she can't. You know what? You do it, because I'm terrible at retelling stories. So Kat, what happened
Yeah.
with this post on Facebook?
So I was trying to run an ad to a woman's discussion, women's circle that I'm hosting next week in Santa Monica. And so it was called Reclaim Your Sex, Reclaim Your Life. I kept trying to run these ads to it. They keep getting shut down. I even changed it to Awaken Your Sensuality. Like no sex, nothing in the title, and it keeps getting rejected. And Facebook has a policy that no sexual content can be promoted. And it just goes to show that, like, no wonder we internalize things as wrong inside of ourselves when that's what's being projected to us, is like, um, that's a real part. We're sexual beings. This is a real part of who
Yes.
we are. It's not porno being broadcasted on Facebook. It's an enlightened conversation around sexuality. So it was frustrating, and it really showed me how much further we still as a culture have to go. And sometimes myself being surrounded by people like you and amazing women and men doing this work and reclaiming themselves, I forget that, like, oh wow, still the majority of the world is kind of living behind blinders when it comes to this. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so
Yeah, it's funny because when I saw that, I was like, gosh, that's so true. But yet this takes it back also too, and this is a whole nother topic, but, it takes it back to the sexualization of breast versus breastfeeding, and that the video where it shows the one mother with her baby breastfeeding, and people were unbelievably rude to her, and another mother or another lady sitting there with just cleavage showing, and everybody was super nice to her.
wow.
And that's like the contradiction of allowing ourselves to actually talk about sex. And it's so intriguing to me, the responses that we get from humans on this topic. So first of all, thank you for doing this work. Thank
Mhm.
you for diving into not only your own healing and sexual expression, but really finding the confidence and creating the space and the safe container for other women and men to be able to express themselves sexually, sensually, erotically,
Mhm.
and really tap into their orgasmic energy for creation and living an amazing, pleasurable, joyful life. So
Mm.
thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's ask just a couple fun questions.
Yeah.
So first, um, what's your sign?
Sagittarius.
Sagittarius. I love it. You are on the hunt, going after it, flying away, and doing your thing.
Yes, I am.
My husband's a
Is
Sagittarius, so
he?
I definitely am familiar.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are you?
I'm a Scorpio.
Scorpio. Okay, I don't know much about Scorpio.
Well, you're about to find out, Sister Sage. Okay, what spiritual text or book or anything are you reading right now?
Well, I'm going to this University of Santa Monica for spiritual psychology, so that's a huge part of my practice right now. But aside from that, Abraham, Abraham Hicks is
Mm.
my go to right now.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. I have so many. I have my favorite Abraham that I listen to. And I can send it to you. It's a YouTube link, but I love all of the rampages.
Yeah.
But my favorite one is Everything is Always Working Out for Me. And
Mm.
I have this one. I'll send it to you via Facebook.
Yeah,
And
please
for
do.
all of you, yeah, for all of my listeners out there, when you come to chat on my Facebook page about this episode, I will drop that YouTube link for Everything is Always Working Out for Me as well in that, so you guys can have access to it. Um, what was the last thing you searched on Google?
Oh, can I check?
You can,
I think it was
absolutely.
actually my Uber address to get home from the gym. I'm at a friend's house in Marina Del Rey in California right now, and I had to search my address to get home from the gym.
That's fantastic. I love it.
Nothing too exciting.
Nothing where you have to go to the incognito page,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And last question is what song or music or what is describing your current existence right now?
Ooh, the song that comes to mind is like "Life Is What You Make It," and I don't even know who sings it. But it's this really upbeat, fun song.
Well, I love those words because it's absolute truth.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I love it. Well, Kat, thank you so much for spending an hour of your time with us and sharing all about the amazing, beautiful, healing work that you're doing.
Mm.
And I'm just really excited for our listeners to really kind of open themselves up a little bit within their own homes, their own life, and just kind of ask themselves this question again: how much pleasure can I get in my life?
Mm-hmm.
And, thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful for it. And I just can't wait to see your second book come out and all of the amazing, beautiful humans that are going to be rising up because of the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. That was the fastest hour of my life. I'm like, I feel like we could talk for days and still have more to talk about.
I know, we totally could, and I love it. And so that's why we'll definitely have you back. I'm working on different series, and I really would love to have you back and just kind of see where you're at in like a year or so from now and even more. So.
Yeah, amazing.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. And everybody, head out over to my Facebook page. Definitely make sure that you join in on the conversation and be real. Let's have an open conversation. You know that it's what I'm all about. I'm not here to cater to any sort of fears of what people will respond or react to. This is open conversation, and that's what we're all about. So thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.